Greg, thanks for coming to Windsor. Always appreciate you've been here before.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad to have you again. Thanks for everybody for coming tonight on your Sunday night. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? And why do you care about this crazy digital money thing?
Well, firstly, thanks for coming, guys. I'm a 60-year-old dad of 3 kids who cares about the future of the children. My children, but not luckily, but the reality is every other child in the world as well. I care about Bitcoin because I've worked for over 30 years in the fiat system, and I realize the cracks in the system and the dangers to the future of our kids. So I, like everyone, probably, well, I'm going to speak for you guys. When I was first introduced to Bitcoin in 2014, I thought it was a scam. In 2016, when I was introduced again, I started off being skeptical, but there was something that was said where the penny dropped, and I'm like, holy moly. Well, what it really was, I'll share this with you, is the gentleman who was selling it to me showed me the blockchain in action. And if you guys haven't gone to like tradeblock.com or one of those blockchain URLs where you can actually watch the transactions taking place, and it's a real live breathing system. As an engineer, I'm very visual, and it was a thing of beauty to me. And then you start asking questions. What? There's only 21 million of these things, not controlled by any centralized authority. It was really the solution to the to the fiat Ponzi that I'd been looking for 25 years of my career. And I initially dismissed it because all the mainstream media said it was a fraud. But luckily, the second time around, I dug deeper, and it was in 2016 where I said this really is something. And so I retired from the Bay Street, Wall Street world in 2015, and hopefully my mind became more or less myopic, more open-minded, and so I have been involved in Bitcoin since 2016. Like a lot of you guys, I did own Ethereum at one point. I did own XRP. I own Litecoin, and this is going to come back to your thing. I'm not criticizing. Whether it's a journey or whatever, I'm a firm believer that the only true use of a blockchain technology is in a truly decentralized format, and therefore any other centralized application of Bitcoin can be done far more efficiently with traditional database software and protocol than using blockchain. I think a lot of blockchain gets thrown out there because of the sex appeal. Yeah. But the reality is it's not a technologically efficient way of managing information unless nobody controls that system. And that's what Bitcoin is, a truly decentralized blockchain. So I just want this to resonate with you in your journey. Really, in my opinion, the only true blockchain is Bitcoin, and everything else could be done much more efficiently in the centralized fashion that they're set up. So Ethereum, it has a leader, it has a protocol that's not math and code, it can be changed anytime. We'll call that a database. Don't call it a blockchain because it could be done more efficiently with a database. So
welcome, come on in.
Yeah, how's it going?
Hey, good.
So my aha moment evolved like everybody, I hope. Keep doing the research. I've allocated hundreds of hours to studying Bitcoin, and I had an advantage because I understand how corrupt the existing system is. So Bitcoin is the only digital asset that solves the fiat Ponzi, and the fiat Ponzi is the thing that makes me the most worried about the future for my kids. So therefore, Bitcoin is the solution for my
Could you elaborate a little bit for those who don't know, what is the fiat Ponzi?
It's a debt-based system that when you have a fiat paper money where you have to trust the government not to abuse the privilege of being able to print money, and there's no intrinsic backing, there's no gold backing that paper money, you are a prisoner to a politician who wants to stay in power for the next 4 years. So they'll do whatever they need to do to stay in power, which generally involves printing more money to get popularity. But think of owning a piece of fiat paper as owning a piece of the debt of the country. Well, that money is actually debt.
Right.
And the fiat system is built on debt. It's built on leverage. And that's the problem, because every system built on leverage gets abused and it collapses.
Right. So you talk a lot about, you throw this word around, asymmetry.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's the best asymmetric.
Yep.
However you say it, I'm not.
Investment opportunity.
Yes. So there's a book called, a very profound piece of literature called Financial Risk Management for Dummies.
Okay.
And what this book says is the foundation of risk management is determining alternative outcomes.
Okay.
So this being said, why is Bitcoin the best asymmetric trade? And also, what the heck is asymmetric trade? Or asymmetric risk?
Asymmetric risk, let's define that as you have a break-even line, okay? And when this is symmetric, where an outcome in both direction equally weighted is a symmetric outcome, right? You can make as much as you can lose.
Okay.
An asymmetric, so that was symmetric. Asymmetric could be this, or asymmetric can be this. So what is this one I just described?
You're going to lose a lot, or you're going to just stay where
Okay,
you're at?
but there actually is a name for that asset? Yeah, but there is a name for that asset.
A hedge?
No.
Bonds?
Attaboy, it is. It's a bond. Bonds are asymmetric to the downside.
Yeah.
Because a bond will never participate in the upside of a company or country that's doing really well. They don't come in and say, we're going to increase your interest rate because we're doing so well. Those gains accrue to the equity holders. Okay? The flip side is, what is this versus this? Or maybe something like this. It could be equities, but it is actually Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin has so much upside. It has 100 times upside and 1 times downside. Don't think of things in percentages. Think in multiples of your capital at risk. Okay? And that's why I always say Bitcoin is the best asymmetric upside opportunity, because it has easily, I could walk through the math, 100 times upside from here and 1 times downside. And Bitcoin's a better investment today than it was 5 years ago, because the information has changed so much that the debt spiral is a reality. The response of the governments to COVID is in the books and it's over. All you can say is you have this amount of upside, and I've never seen a better opportunity, which is also to say you don't have to own 100% of your allocation in Bitcoin. You can have 2, 3, 5% of your allocation in something that goes up 100-fold. That 5% already turns into 500% of your portfolio, everything else being equal. That's exciting. You get in your life probably 3 asymmetric trade opportunities or investment opportunities in your entire life. And Bitcoin's the best one I've ever seen. And most people are blind to it. And I'm trying to lay out the math as to why it's so
Why
beautiful.
are most people blind? Because I mean, I try to orange pill a lot of people, and I find it. I'm a pastor, so I'm evangelizing to people about Jesus Christ, and so I find these things sort of parallel, because not many people get the Jesus thing, and not many people get the Bitcoin thing, so nobody's really buying anything I'm selling, it seems. But what is it about Bitcoin that is so difficult for people to grasp until? It just seems like there's just that, like you said, the penny drops and,
Right.
and that's it. But to get to that point, it seems...
Well, a lot of it is we're not taught it in school. Perhaps one of the best ways to appreciate Bitcoin is to realize how broken the fiat system is. But if they taught you how broken the fiat system is, no one would ever deposit their money in a bank.
Well, yeah, that's
Because
true.
they'd be like, oh my God. The risk of actually having a deposit in a bank is huge. But if people really knew how risky it was, they wouldn't have any deposits in the bank, and the banks couldn't make any loans to keep the fiat system working. So, there's a reason that you're not taught it in school. Humans are there's optimists and pessimists, there's no question, but for things like new technology, humans are by and large pessimists. And, you know, you lay down, and we were doing this last night with Ray and Yana, his wife, you lay down 100-time upside opportunity, and all everyone wants to focus is on the one turn downside. Oh my God, you know, something can happen. Okay, yes, it's a probability analysis, but also all of this can happen, all of the upside. And you have to learn to weigh the upside against the downside. But you're taught by the central bankers and the bankers that, you know, Bitcoin's a Ponzi. The people that know, like Jamie Dimon, that Bitcoin is the solution, he can't tell you that because it would mean he's shitting where he eats, right? His system is done. Yeah. If he tells you to go out and buy Bitcoin, he's admitting that his banking system is done, and he can't. So there's a lot of, you know, a lot of back and forth on that one.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question. Which G7 nation will be the first to adopt Bitcoin?
Oh, to adopt. I thought you were going to say the first to default.
We'll get there. Who do you think will be the first to adopt, whether by...
Well, let's be clear. There are really G9 nations, okay? The big, because G7 doesn't include China and Russia.
Right.
So I'm going to make that to a G9 group, and I think Russia will be the first. Because they have natural resource energy, and it makes a lot of sense to price natural resource energy in digital energy, which is Bitcoin. And they don't want to own US dollars, which can be frozen. And they also don't want to own or trade their oil for US dollars that can be printed by the United States and debased. So why sell a valuable natural resource for something that will be paper money that'll debase over time? So as an engineer, I am an engineer, I think digital energy for natural resource energy is part of this conservation of energy type of paradigm.
So if Russia does it, does that mean, is the U.S. at this point right now smart enough to do it too if Russia does it? Or are they just going to say, they're stupid, Russia's stupid and get
There's people in the U.S. that are smart enough, and that gives me a lot of hope because, you know, young kids like Luke Broyles, but particularly a kid that's become a pretty close friend of mine, Jason Lowry. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the thesis that he's published for, you know, the president, Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Department of Security and everything. It's truly a thing of beauty. Now, I don't have that much confidence in the POTUS or President of the U.S. I think that there's some situations there, but hopefully he surrounds himself with really smart people that'll get the message through. That being said, you know, it's unlikely that it would be great if the USA was already 3 steps ahead. I don't think they're there yet.
Mm-hmm. But if Russia does it, you think they do it too?
I really don't know. But I think if Russia does it, I think China does it, and I think Iran does it, and then the Western world says, holy crap, let's try and shut this thing down, and all of a sudden it becomes even more valuable. And then they're like, I'm trying to shut things down and my own citizenship is buying it because they realize that it's got value, and it just becomes a self-fulfilling game theory proposition. Look, Canada is a mini Russia, okay? We have valuable natural resource energy. We just have an idiot as a fucking CEO, okay? Who says stuff like the budget will balance itself and math doesn't matter, and he's scared of math. He admits it. No, he did. He said he has a math learning problem. Well, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be the CEO of a country or a company if you're scared of mathematics. But that is where we are right now.
Yeah. So on that note, who's the first G7 or G9, whatever, to go to zero?
If we don't get our act in gear, it's Canada. Because first of all, Canada is a G7 only because we're lucky enough to live next to the most powerful nation in the world. But our country is less important than the state of California, truthfully. On a GDP basis, we are a smaller G7. So California would be a G5 country if it was a standalone state. Pretty amazing, just like Texas. So that's how powerful the USA is and how insignificant, as much as I love our country, I say that we live in the attic of the USA rent-free. They don't even know where to find us on a map, okay? Doesn't matter, it's a rounding error. Oh, Canada, fuck, I didn't even know they existed. And but we gotta be careful because the USA will find out the painfulness of Canada defaulting because it will disrupt their trade, and we're the first or second largest trading partner with the USA. If your first or second largest trading partner goes out of business, it impacts your business too, right? So,
do they bail us out, you think? Somehow?
I mean, why would they unless they took us over? And there's some people in Canada that wouldn't want that to happen and others that wouldn't, but I don't even want to go down that route. Like, you know, I mean, but let's look at the optimistic side. If Canada got our act in gear and we actually started accumulating Bitcoin on our balance sheet, it could change the entire mathematics of it.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe that's why I'm still a proud Canadian. I'm pushing for that.
Yeah. Well, you already answered the next question. I was going to ask, when does the loonie drown? But it seems like it's already drowning.
Well, okay, so when a fiat collapses, it's not just the debt that collapses, it's the unit of account, which is the loonie. There is a positive outcome here, guys. It's that we start, you know that everybody in the world is exporting natural gas except Canada, and natural gas is in huge demand, and we have the most of it, second most in the world, but the most of it per capita. And we have a guy that's just not managing that properly. So there's positive outcomes, but the default of Canada as a debtor nation will correspond to the collapse of the loonie as a
might be called out when China takes over.
Unit of account. Well, no, see, there's where the U.S. would step in. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. One of our non-trusted counterparties is coming to take over our attic. Well, maybe we better do something, right? So, but let's not play those war game scenarios. The positive side is we still have time to change it, but you can't go around saying stuff like the budget will balance itself. I mean, that's just so irresponsible. It's kindergarten type of thought, yet that's who is in charge of Canada right now.
He also said, you'll forgive me if I don't think about monetary policy.
That was part of the same sentence. Because he's scared. He doesn't understand mathematics. Okay, look.
But don't say it out loud, though.
He's allowed to, and he's not accountable for it because we have a society that, well, okay, I don't care about mathematics either, so I'm going to vote him into office because, he's more like me than I thought he was, right?
We're like a math folks, it seems, in Canada. We're afraid of math.
A lot of people in the world are now. I mean, it's just become less focused, I think, in school. It's a subject where, we're a coddled nation. One of the things in Jason Lowery's thesis that I find amazing is he says, have humans become too domesticated, where we're not going out into our areas of uncomfort. We're not going out to hunt in the wild like our ancestors. We just assume that we'll get freshie delivered to our house, right? Like, I mean, everything is now too centralized around the house, which includes things like, I don't want to have to take math. Okay, don't worry, you won't. We'll write math out of the curriculum because it's one of the most scary subjects, right? Math is actually a fascinating subject if taught properly and encouraging kids to understand, why pi or why circumference, why, conservation of energy, why Taylor series. All these things are pretty exciting if you, encourage them.
Why do you think people are so adverse to math? Is there something deeper here going on here? It can't just be that people don't like it.
No, it's scary though, right? Like, I mean, most people don't take to math naturally. It's imposing. There's some kids that do, and then chances are. So I went to McGill in engineering. This is why I like Saylor so much. He is as brilliant as a rocket scientist as the smartest kid that I went to in McGill. The difference was that rocket scientist in McGill was a walking computer mainframe that could not fucking speak. But math, it was just like, going around in their head, and they were able to. Saylor can do both. He can actually do the math and talk about it. Those people are not run-of-the-mill. It's a tremendous talent. So, people tend to, we don't focus on the arts, we don't focus on the sciences enough, perhaps. And that allows people to go into the liberal arts and stuff that make it, I'm not criticizing that, it's just a reality.
You can. So what do you mean when you say Bitcoin has no counterparty risk?
Oh, okay, great question. So we were at dinner tonight, we were talking about the total addressable market of Bitcoin, and someone asked, why don't you include derivatives into the total addressable market? And the reality is derivatives, which are the largest notional asset class, which means they're the largest contracts out there, they largely net out. For every seller of something in a derivative, there's a buyer on the other side. And as long as the counterparty doesn't break down, that contract neutralizes and market risk is zero. Okay? There's a winner and a loser at the end of the contract, but the net effect on the market is zero. You guys got the guy that won, totally offset against the guy that lost. The risk is the guy that's losing doesn't come to the table to pay his debt, and that's called counterparty risk. Okay? Why was Goldman Sachs so concerned that AIG went bankrupt in the great financial crisis? Was because Goldman had bought so much credit protection, or otherwise known as insurance, from AIG, that if AIG fell down on those obligations, Goldman couldn't make good to their clients, and their clients would have sent Goldman into bankruptcy, which is counterparty risk. Bitcoin, when you self-custody it, has no counterparty risk. It's not like you rely on someone to deliver your Bitcoin to you.
Right.
It's there. It is digitally secure in cold storage. There's no counterparty risk. So that's why it's beautiful. So I often say, for example, that Bitcoin is default protection on fiat currencies, but if you need to purchase that default protection in the open market, you have to go to a counterparty and buy it from a financial institution. Well, in the great financial crisis, and I had this trade on, I was insured against the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers because I had bought protection, but I had bought it from Bear Stearns. Well, holy shit. Bear Stearns was going bankrupt. So therefore, I wasn't really insured against Lehman Brothers because my insurance company was going bankrupt as well. And that is the definition of counterparty risk. So Bitcoin has no counterparty risk because if you custody it, it's there. And you don't have to worry about someone else delivering it to you. It's there. So that's why it's a beautiful contract. It does not have counterparty risk.
So I'm talking with a lot of people in their 30s and even in their 40s, in Canada especially. And one of the biggest roadblocks I'm hitting with this demographic as far as orange pilling is housing. They'll tell me, man, look, I'm not buying Bitcoin. I'm trying to save for a down payment, and I can't even do that.
Okay.
So why would I get involved with Bitcoin when I'm in this situation? And it seems hopeless for them. And a lot of people in that age range, well, a lot of people in every age range, but especially in this age range, feel like financially lost, hopeless. What do you say to those people in that demographic in this country that are so downcast that talking about something like this just seems like a pipe dream?
I feel for them. The purchase of a house was an American or Canadian dream. We have to be careful to realize that we may be living for a future dream where that asset can be repossessed by the state and all your hard work going into saving for that house could be basically taken from you. I don't want that to happen, but it's a non-zero risk, and it's getting greater as things like, socialized everything, socialized losses, socialized everybody's treated equally. Oh, 7 of these guys don't have houses and 2 of these guys have a house, so let's sell the house for these 2 guys and take it away so everybody can be equal again. I mean, that's just where the world seems to be headed. The truth is twofold. A house is a very good store of value over time, but it's not transferable or portable. Meaning, it's not transferable at a price where if you need to liquidate your house, chances are everyone on the block is trying to do the same thing and the house price has just crashed, right? And then the flip side is everyone's trying to sell their house, but they're also trying to leave the country because this country's gone to hell in a handbasket. No one's taking their house with them. It's a fixed asset that's in the jurisdiction. So you have to be careful so everybody needs hard assets. Hard assets include real estate, gold, silver, commodities, Bitcoin, but then you have to rank those hard assets by portability. And if you need to leave a jurisdiction, how portable is it, and how can you liquidate that? So maybe the dream of house ownership is still very good, but the risks have increased to the point where you should consider just being a renter and perhaps put your store of value into a better hard asset. I'm not going to make that decision for you guys. It's something you'll have to decide. I know for sure I've never treated my principal residence as a store of value as much as a memory lane. If you have a family that grows up in a house, maybe you feel the same way about it if you rent it, but chances are you have a bigger attachment to it if you own it. That is a life luxury that is measured beyond dollars and cents. It's a qualitative thing. So Ray and I were talking about this, you can own real estate, but perhaps the best way to own it is you own 5% of it and the bank owns 95% of it, which means you're very levered. And if something horrendous happens, like the country takes it over, well, you lost 5% of the value of the house and the bank lost 95% of it, and you've mitigated your losses. Can you make a portfolio that's part home ownership equity and part Bitcoin? That's for everybody to decide, but that's called risk management. Mm-hmm. So everyone will have to make that decision personally. I own our principal residence. It's a beautiful space, place that we've owned for 25 years. I'm grateful to own it. It's going to be a tough decision whether I borrow money against that house again to risk losing it, but it's something I actually should do as a good risk manager, because that house could be repossessed, and despite all the memories, you don't want to bear that risk, right?
Right. So final question before we open it up for everyone else here. If Charlie Munger was in this room, what would you say or do to him?
Well, well, you guys might have seen some of my stuff. Look, on the positive side, Mr. Munger and Mr. Buffett have been a inspiration to many Americans to learn about investing and to invest in solid American companies that participate in growth. But they've also benefited from the system. Some of their largest positions are in financial institutions that have a backstop, meaning a government bailout, and they know that, so they are strategically investing to take advantage of a situation that's weighted in their favor. They have all the upside, but they don't have all the downside, because the downside is capped by the government bail in or bail out, and therefore it's a smart trade for them to do in big size.
Right.
But the problem with them is they freely admitted that they don't understand technology. So for Mr. Munger to opine on something where, first of all, he puts all crypto assets in one basket, he's the type of guy that would have wanted a faster horse rather than the automobile. Very simply, right? I don't think they're good at identifying technology. They admit they're not good at it. And after all, at the end of the day, look, when I have a problem with my iPhone, I don't try to solve it. I give it to my kids. Tell me why this isn't working. I don't get it, right? Getting into the geo key here in the building was painful for me, okay? There's just one step I was missing because it wasn't natural for me. Whereas a kid would just, you take this button. You don't hit the button, you swipe it to the freaking left. Yeah. Fuck, tell me to swipe to the left, It's just not natural for me. But over time, it becomes natural for kids, and it's not natural for Mr. Munger either, yet he opines on something that, as Joe Kernan on CNBC said the other day, he's opining on something he has done no research on. He's probably never read the Fiat Standard, certainly hasn't read the Bitcoin white paper. I think he's giving horrible advice, and for that reason I would tell him, please, you're giving horrible advice to my kids, and for everything you've done in the world, I would respectfully ask you not to opine on something you don't know anything about.
You're being really nice to him today.
Well, not so much, because I've already said it that many times. And if he says, he's going to continue to do it, I'll just say in my head, look, he's 99 years old. Statistically, the chances of him living another 10 years is almost zero. So time will take care of itself, right? I don't mean it
it's only
with any. Yeah. Well, the other expression I say is he shouldn't buy green bananas. because he might not be alive to see them ripen, right? So don't buy green bananas. It's a probability adjustment adjusted
Good
thing,
risk,
right?
yes.
It's just math.
Yeah.
It's just math. So speaking of math, we got something here for you.
Oh, all right.
That we'd like, if you would be so kind as to sign for
Oh,
us
yeah.
as a memento. We got a math textbook.
Come
here.
on.
We wanted to find grade 11 math, but we couldn't find grade 11. But we got a good old math textbook here.
I will
And
definitely.
if you could sign
Hold
that
on
for
now.
us.
This book is property of.
Don't worry about that.
This came from some elementary school.
Don't worry about
All
it.
right.
Just sign it.
For the kids.
Yeah, however you want to sign it. This is
Grade 11 math. I love it.
Keep calculating.
Yeah, no, like, here's the thing. Like, there is an outcome that's very positive, and it involves Bitcoin and math and code. And thank you for this, by the way, or thanks for having me sign it. Look at, oh, I thought it said Foss Man. It says Forest Man. Keep learning, guys. This is really encouraging to see you guys come on a Sunday night to this. You owe it to your children to do this deep dive because, it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. But it's not. And you're committing to something that is a discipline that is very rewarding. But there's times when you look at it and you're like, oh, God. Here we go again. Just when you think it's a open road, some clown senator says something, or FTX blows up, or some, contagion risk somewhere, not related to Bitcoin, but everybody lumps Bitcoin in as the same thing, right? So, look, I think I'm the oldest guy in the room, looking around, and I'm very lucky to come and to meet you guys. It gives me a lot of hope. My generation has quite honestly fucked this up. And I feel guilty about it, but we really have fucked it up. And the reason we fucked it up is because nobody is disciplined enough to pay our own debts. We want to pull forward gains that should accrue to our children. We want to continue to live the easy, soft life. Print more money. Let's solve something for the next 4 years, but make things way worse 20 years down the road, right?
Yeah. Well, not to get preachy, but there's a story in the Bible about a king. The prophet came to the king and he said, here's what's going to happen. It's going to be good for you. Your days are going to be prosperous and fine, but your sons are going to be taken away into captivity.
Jeez, yeah.
They're going to become eunuchs. They're going to have their testicles removed. That's what a eunuch is.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what the king said? He said, oh, that's good news. For I will have prosperity and peace in my days.
Wow. And this is in the Bible?
This is in the Bible.
Wow.
And so what I see, what's happened is exactly that. Right? The older generation has said, oh, well, we're going to have peace and prosperity in our days.
Mm-hmm.
When they knew very well that it would lead to the detriment of their children and their future.
Wow.
So,
well, on the positive side, so that's a selfish attitude. I really see lots of unselfish Bitcoiners, people that are givers of their time, of their efforts. I'm going to call out Luke because I probably know him better than anyone on the room, but I haven't known him for the longest. But like 23-year-old kid that's going to, if continues on this path, is going to make huge waves. And if he doesn't, that's fine. But guys already have. Like what Jason Lowry, the U.S. Space Force kid, has contributed to the thought process of Bitcoin blows my mind. And I was lucky enough to meet him 2 years ago. And I thought at the time that I might have met the smartest kid I've ever met in my life, or a person, and I still believe that to the day. So, there's certain Bitcoiners who think he's a spook. There's certain Bitcoiners that don't think he added value, but by and large, most Bitcoiners will see, in my opinion, the contributions. And those that don't, that are honest with it themselves, though, can, by positive interaction, can make it better anyway, right? General George Patton had a statement or a phrase. He said, if everybody is thinking alike, somebody isn't thinking. So we can't all think alike, or we can agree on a lot of things, but not everything. That's positive. And, I have some friends in Bitcoin Twitter who didn't agree with Jason Lowry, maybe because he used the word kinetic force or war but they forget he was talking to the U.S. military. They use those phrases all the time. You got to speak the language of the of your audience, right? So, yeah, pretty open to answering any questions, or and it's not just about me. If it's about everyone in the room, if someone else thinks they can answer some of these questions better than me, please speak up. But you tell me what you want to do.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking time to do this fireside chat, even though the fireplace was off. It is pretty warm in here. But